Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Gargoyles episode reviews. Today we're looking at Outfoxed. Cyberbiotics is again in House Xanatos' sights, but this time it's Fox, not David Xanatos, who is plotting. Unlike her husband, who only wanted a piece of their technology breakthroughs, Fox wants the whole company. After the gargoyle attacks on Cyberbiotics facilities last year, the company is struggling. Their new research station, Air Fortress 2, is manned by only robots and the company's CEO and aide. Not only is it their flagship, it's also their Achilles heel. Knowing this, Goliath tries to act as escort, but no good deed goes unpunished. Will he end up unwittingly helping Fox? Spoilers in the 2020 moments, info from Ask Greg's and the According to Greg bits. Season 2, Episode 14, Outfoxed, originally called After the Fox. I'm not sure what that's a reference to, but Outfoxed is way better. Alright, and here's some spoilers. Reason for existence: to show Fox is in every way the equal and sometimes superior of her husband, the formidable David Xanatos. To show that loyalty and integrity have a price. To explore what loyalty means. To introduce Preston Vogel and Halcyon Renard. To reveal that Fox is pregnant with her and David's kid. To reconcile the issues between Renard and Goliath. To explore the theme of personal responsibility and its price. Right. Main antagonists, and this is also spoilery, Preston Vogel and Renard temporarily, and Fox. Times, November 17th through the 18th, 1995. Locations, New York City, New York. Outfoxed. Oh, opening on the Erie building, are we? Oh, this is going to be good. It's okay. Kind of a storm brewing up there. Got clouds. No full moon this time. The quick red fox jumps over the lazy brown dog. Greg calls this one of the most subversive episodes of any show on TV, at least at that time. I don't know about that, as there have been a lot of subversive gargoyle eps. I think why he gives it this distinction is because of who is involved and their relationship. You'll see. Previously on Gargoyles, we get an amazing recap of Fox and David's relationship. David is doing the narration, his proposal speech from Eye of the Beholder. Scenes illustrating his points in magnificent fashion are rolling. This is going to be a great episode. We open on a news report by Travis Marshall about Cyberbiotics' new airship, the Fortress 2. This is the first time we've heard from the tech giant since Awakening, so that was a long time ago, where Xanatos manipulated the gargoyles into stealing 3 floppy disks that somehow held all the data he needed to bring the Steel Clan online. I still don't know why Xanatos Enterprises couldn't figure it out on their own or just buy it from a disgruntled Cyberbiotics employee. I mean, Xanatos Enterprises created Coyote, which was realistic enough to convince the pack that the android was Xanatos himself. I theorize that by that I mean Coyote's tech, came from the Steel Clan OS, which Xanatos' people massively improved upon. But I digress. Fortress 2 is Cyberbiotics' flagship after Demona wrecked number 1. The man Travis is interviewing is Preston Vogel, the major domo of Cyberbiotics CEO Halcyon Renard. Name note: Halcyon means happy, or also a type of bird. It's a medication if you spell it with an I instead of a Y. Renard means fox in French. Renard is neither happy nor cunning. Preston means from Preston, and Vogel means bird. Vogel looks familiar. He looks like a black-haired version of Owen. He has almost the same demeanor as Owen. That's kind of spooky. Or is that how top aides in this town are? Is this Renard guy like Xanatos? We've never seen him before. And here you can tell that this interview is on a TV because you got the picture framed in the TV. And does Owen have a brother? I mean, seriously, they could be twins. Except for coloring. And thus far, Cyberbiotics has been a faceless entity that I mentally picture as a slow-moving herbivore in the Mesozoic era. Meanwhile, I picture Xanatos Enterprises as a Spinosaurus or a Velociraptor, fast, agile, and ruthless. So we've got a picture of an Apatosaurus, it's Cyberbiotics. And then we've got the wonderful Spinosaurus, that's Xanatos Enterprises. That's one of my favorite dinosaurs. Vogel explains that he and Renard will be the only people aboard, as the ship uses robots for crew. Robots freak me out, so there is no way you'd get me on that ship. For some reason, Coyote and the Steel Clan don't freak me out. Maybe it's because I know just how terrible the Steel Clan is at, being robots. And I don't know, Coyote, the AI is so advanced that it's almost kind of like dealing with Data or something. I mean, from Star Trek, that Data. Now we get to see who's watching this interview. Fox. She's in what was once the Gargoyles TV room. Doesn't she have, like, an office or maybe a bedroom with a widescreen? David's TV in his office is amazing. I think the animators were just lazy here. Shades of her husband in this pose. She's looking very cunning, eyes narrowed, and got her chin resting on her hand. My one true pairing, totally. Travis asks if it's true that Renard sank everything into this ship, and if the ship goes down, Cyberbiotics is done for. Travis, he's a very good journalist in the fact that he always asks these really hard-hitting questions. Vogel cuts off the interview with, "That's 2 questions, Mr. Marshall, and this interview is over." Then he boards the massive hover ship. I guess it's a hover ship? Well, I mean, it's vertical takeoff and landing anyway. The thing is like the Shield's flying fortress, but it's not for war, so I don't know why it's called a fortress. And they even called the first one a fortress, so it's not like this one's a fortress against the Gargoyles. Fox looks smug and pleased. When she stands, we see David is holding up the door frame behind her. "No need to turn it off on my account," he says. "No big deal, David. I know what happens next." And there they are. There's literally never a time when these two are not making sexy eyes at each other. And he knows she's got some plan afoot, and I don't know if he's happy about it, but he's proud of her either way. Cyberbiotics is in for another blow. We haven't gotten to see Fox operate much other than way back during Thrill of the Hunt, before Prison, and before the Gargoyles, before Leader of the Pack. I have a feeling she's learned a lot from her experiences. That's what's so great about the Gargoyles antagonists. They evolve, learning from their mistakes to become even more dangerous. It'll be interesting to see what she's got up her sleeve. It's also a nice twist that Xanatos isn't directly manipulating the situation. He seems to approve of whatever she's planning, though. Well, this is not good news for Cyberbiotics. Don't be a hero. On a shore cliff, Elisa and Goliath are watching the Fortress 2 wander out over the bay. Goliath is worried that Xanatos will try something again, so G glides out after. I don't know what kind of logic he's using there, because Xanatos was really only interested in those 3 discs, which, again, I don't even know why he needed those, because the technology that came after that was far superior. And we'll see, 2020 moment here, we'll see in the future that robots that are stumbling around that ship are just trash compared to, like, Coyote. So, unless there's something Xanatos really, really wants off of that, he's not going to bother with it. It's not like he had some grudge against Cyberbiotics. Alright, there's a giant flashback in here about Fortress 1, because according to Greg, they needed to burn time, and you will see why as they go on. But, I think they could have just stuck in some more Fox and Xanatos scenes. Like, I would have been perfectly happy with that. Inside the airship, Fortress 2, we get our first look at Renard. Sort of. It's like a behind and side angle. Even from here, he looks like he's 1,000 years old and revived from being a mummy, but only just revived. Vogel and Renard see Goliath on the cameras. Apparently Goliath forgot that he and Demona are the ones that Cyberbiotics considers responsible for crashing Fortress 1. Remember, Xanatos was only convicted of receiving stolen property, not of inciting gargoyles to attack and destroy a semi-destroy 3 Cyberbiotics installations. So, Goliath, congratulations on being the face of sabotage. So, now they deploy the Cybots. What a stupid name. They basically have these little stinger taser tails. The problem is they weenie rush. Goliath falls, and they drag him into the ship. I'm surprised they didn't just let him fall, into the ground or the bay or whatever's underneath him. After all, he took down the first fortress. Images of him from the cameras Had to have haunted Renard for the last year. Does Renard suspect Xanatos, I wonder? And here's Goliath doing battle with these little mosquitoes. I mean, they're not too little. They're, a couple feet. I'm sure the FAA is thrilled about these bots flying around. Goliath wakes up in a cage. Not a good way to wake up. Then gets tased by bots when he tries to escape. A moment later, Renard comes to glare and gloat at him. Renard is not only, I don't know if he is old as dirt yet, but he sure looks it. He's also in a wheelchair/futuristic electric scooter. Don't tase me, bro. And those things are tanks. Those robots. They remind me of the robots that you'd see in shows like the Centurions, or maybe SWAT Cats, or Captain Planet back in the 90s, like on Cartoon Network. And here we have Renard. Would somebody give him some blood? Because I swear he's a vampire that just woke up hungry from torpor. He's got claw nails plus fangs. He might have been handsome once, I guess. And there's Vogel behind him. Renard is disgusted, as he thinks Xanatos and Genutech cooked up the gargoyle. Oh, so he does suspect Xanatos. He also knows what Genutech is doing. How? Do they do respectable genetic research that's a lot like their pet projects? Because I don't think Genutech exactly publishes its eel catbat research in Popular Science. Goliath says he's no experiment, and he's certainly not on Xanatos' side. It wasn't Goliath's fault, quote-unquote, that he attacked the fortress. Xanatos duped him. Not my fault is apparently a trigger for Renard, as he goes off on a tirade about how nobody has any personal responsibility. I'm getting the impression that this guy isn't a villain. He may have a right-hand man like Owen, but he is no Xanatos, and he may have Goliath in a cage, but he's no Macbeth. There he is on his rant. Man, cuddly as a cactus there, buddy. Regarding Goliath not taking responsibility, Renard's only half right, since while yes, Goliath attacked the ship, Xanatos conned him into it, very effectively. And Demona actually did the deed. Remember, she pulled that big power cable out and then touched it to the central computer? Somehow that was enough to crash the whole thing, which I think is a major design flaw. No redundancy in systems. That's unheard of. I wonder if Goliath ever thinks back on that night and cringes. Renard says there wasn't an iota of personal responsibility in the entire lot of people he's fired over the years. Oh, slow down, Renard. So you're the paragon of integrity and personal responsibility of the world? You realize that you're coming off as a self-righteous, preachy snob, right? Nobody's perfect. Well, except you, apparently. Nobody can live up to your standards, except you. Where did his standards come from, anyway? Was it his upbringing, or was it an experience that burned them into him? Was he always this way? Renard accuses Goliath of whining. Oh, that is a trigger for Goliath, who rams out of the cage and takes out the nearest bot. Renard uses his chair's taser on him, though. Why does his wheelie car have a taser? I have never seen that before, but okay, I've never seen a giant airship full of robots either, so fine. Vogel takes blame for not putting G in a maximum security cage. Why are there not one but two types of large cages in this research ship? Maybe gargoyles? I don't know. And don't get me started on how dumb this whole idea is. Having a giant airship trundling around above NYC all day and night, wasting resources. Maybe that's why this is Cyberbiotics' last hurrah. Greg called it hubris, and I agree. You don't see Xanatos Enterprises pissing away resources like this. What exactly is it that you can only research on an aircraft, anyway? Vogel's phone rings, and Renard leaves him to take the call. Vogel takes the call via video chat. Who should be calling? But Fox. Nice job on the fox head tattoo. Their animator's real nice. That thing is, there's no way that that's Fox. It's sort of a spiky shape over her eye. Vogel says it's safe to talk since Renard never intrudes on his calls. I've always respected him for that, says Vogel. So, Preston doesn't hate or really even dislike Renard. Then why is he talking to Fox? She's wired Vogel a payment, and in return, he'll upload a virus into the Cybots. Now, you might think that this was the virus from Legion, but it's never stated as that, and I don't think it is, because of what will happen next. Vogel may be a sharp-dressed, clean-cut, ice-cold majordomo, but Owen he is not. Hell would freeze over if Owen betrayed Xanatos. They say every man has his price, but I really can't imagine what Owen's is. Vogel's, however, is money. That's simple. How did Fox and Vogel first meet? Okay, guys, and remember, I read these as if I don't know how this episode plays out. And how on earth did the conversation get around to taking down Fortress 2? It's not exactly a small talk topic at the gathering of the elite of NYC. Even if the topic came up, it would take some time to get Vogel on Fox's side, assuming he doesn't have any beef against Renard, which it seems he does not. Taking down Fortress 2 might even endanger Vogel's job. Or does he maybe think it's time for the old man to retire before the stress kills him early? Vogel informs Fox that of Goliath's capture. She doesn't react much, other than to smirk, like Xanatos does. Like her husband, she doesn't hold grudges, apparently. Looks like she's learning from David. It's Vogel who suggests they use G as a scapegoat. Thinks on his feet, does this guy. At the Max Sec cage, Goliath is determined to convince Renard that Xanatos is the bad guy. Well, no problem there. The old man already hates David, calling him a viper. Renard thinks Xanatos, quote, corrupted Owen and Severius, who used to work for Cyberbiotics. You know, that's a nice little revelation that they tucked in there. Renard, you are a poor judge of character. Owen is devoted heart and soul to both his job and his boss. Severius is reveling in his role as a mad scientist at Genutech. These men did not fit Cyberbiotics' quote, work culture, unquote, if said culture is all about being rigidly moral. Nope, Xanatos Enterprises is their home, no question. They probably approached him. This still leaves a lot for us to guess at regarding how Xanatos met both of the men, though, and how Owen earned his exclusive position. This animosity between Renard and Xanatos is something that's been going on for years, and it may be part of why David hit Cyberbiotics in Awakening. Renard has a burning need, though, to hear Goliath say, I did it, even though he admits that Goliath was tricked. And even though it's not going to bring back the other fortress, and it won't serve any sort of good. But apparently, old man has nothing better to do than hassle Goliath. Apparently, he does keep some grudges. And, you know, how much does each one of those big, huge tank robots cost? And I call them tanks, but they have feet, which is kind of stupid. Consider they're just sort of stand there. You could put little wheels on them. Is that your final answer? On that note, we cut to the Erie Building's gym/dojo. It's about 3 or 4 times bigger than any dojo I have ever trained in. We saw it before in The Edge, remember? When Owen and David were sparring. Man, that thing is amazing. You've got some weights on the sidelines there, the mats in the front of this huge, like, warehouse area. Got some lighting up on the angled ceiling and, like, some vents along the very top, and there's a window at the end. Beautiful. It's Fox and David who are sparring this time. They're going easy, probably 30 or 40% of their max effort. I love seeing them together. Heck, I love seeing antagonists doing their everyday stuff, not just their, well, antagonistic machinations. It's great how these two are competitive with each other since they're both type A's, yet in the end are on the same team. When one wins, they both win, because they take pride in each other's accomplishments. He doesn't dominate her, and she doesn't have him under her thumb. David sweeps Fox, then asks, you seem distracted. Having second thoughts? About that last kick, she says. No, about Renard, he replies. And he's got her down, and he's in stance. Sparring is actually really good for building camaraderie, you know. She gets his arm behind his back, which, by the way, is a pretty easy position to get out of. Just saying. So he's more interested in the conversation than the match at this point. He says that if her hostile takeover succeeds, Cyberbiotics will be wiped out. And he says he's not a young man. 2020 moment. I've always thought that Renard freaks David out a little. Renard is about the same age as Petros. That's David's dad. I mean, and I say this, but I don't know how old Petros is. I was not able to find that. I just looked on Garg Fandom and Garg Wiki. Now, I did find that Renard was born in 1928, which is, yes, a long time ago right now, but at that point would have made him 67 during this episode, or 68-ish. So, either way, he's not that old. I mean, we're talking a guy who's basically my parents' age, and they look nothing like he does. And yeah, I'm also a few years older now than Fox, which is really weird because I watched this show when I was just a wee bairn. So, going on, Renard may even be younger, though I doubt it. In Xanatos' mind, Renard could represent all that is terrible about aging. I don't think it's a coincidence that after Renard became David's father-in-law, David ramped up the search for immortality. Fox responds, "Oh, he'll manage. He always has." Then she executes a nice throw that lands Xanatos prone and her on his back. She's every bit his equal here. Cyberbiotics should be hers by morning, she declares. We'll celebrate over breakfast. Alright, let's look at this exchange, because there's a lot to it. First, David's looking out for Renard. It's clear that Xanatos is in no way behind the current scheme against Cyberbiotics. He's not disapproving, though. It's like he's asking, is that your final answer? It's not that he cares about Renard. No, he cares about Fox. But how would Cyberbiotics falling or Renard getting hurt affect Fox? She married the guy who orchestrated the last attack on Cyberbiotics. 2020 moment / according to Greg. I'm going to quote his ramble from Station 8 because he puts it so well. And you know, how blessed are we to have Greg that he spent all that time doing these rambles and analyses on the characters and the plots. It's just, he's such a great guy. Alright, it's not that David really cares about Halcyon. I think he's thinking about his relationship with his own father. David likes to believe, at this stage in the series, that he's evolved beyond the need for a parental relationship. But Vows sort of demonstrates that his relationship with Petros is much more complex than that. David still needs parental approval and is somewhat amazed, at least subconsciously, that Fox does not. Again, in this episode, Fox is more than his equal. By the way, Greg's episode memo is also on Station 8. And, you know, speaking as a female here, females' relationships with their dads are a bit more complex than guys' relationships. Yeah, boys are usually just really focused on getting approval from dad. Girls want that love and approval, but if they don't get it, they will find it somewhere else, or they'll just do without. So her not quite needing it as much as he might is not too surprising, you know, for a guy that is having that issue. It will be surprising. So just a little bit from a different perspective. All right, now what's with this always stuff? You know how she said that he always kind of shakes it off. She's tangled with Renard before, I guess? Or is she going off David's actions in Awakening? Perhaps Cyberbiotics has suffered other blows before Xanatos' stab. She doesn't sound like she bears them any animosity, though. Why does she want to take over Cyberbiotics so badly anyhow? Maybe it's just because it's a rival to Xanatos Enterprises, or it's big, or because she can. She might have even worked for them, like Owen and Severius did. One of the combatants' cell phone rings. David answers, so I'm assuming it's his phone, but maybe he took Fox's call too. It's interesting that he identifies himself as Xanatos when he answers, not David. Well, hey, if my last name was Xanatos, I would also do that because that is a darn cool name. He hands the phone to Fox and says, "It's your doctor," with the test results. His tone suggests he's a bit annoyed and confused. He's also maybe a little afraid, judging by the uncertainty in his face. "Oh, didn't I mention them?" she says. "I suppose it slipped my mind." She is so sly here. I think David got a heck of a handful when he married her, and vice versa. But that's why he loves her. They're a perfect match. She's also getting a kick out of toying with him. It's the "I know something you don't know" game. This is what you get when you marry a redhead. I'm just saying. By his expression, his mind is trying to catch up with his ears while simultaneously running through all the meanings of the term test results. Fox is chill, but maybe if he isn't scared, he's off balance. You don't see that often in him. Actually, the only time you see it in him is with Fox. Man, she's even given Xanatos a run for his money in the nonchalance department in this episode. Oh, and look at that phone. It's the old clamshell type with the little antenna. Alright, now I'm still wondering why the office called his phone instead of hers. Of course he's on her approved contacts list, but what, was her voicemail box full or something? Run Norton virus scan? On the ship, Vogel loads a little chip into one of the Cybots. Oh, look at all those robots all over the place. And gosh, they're ugly. I would be panicking right now if I was around all those things. And it looks like like a spaceship bridge here. A little bit of nod to Enterprise, maybe? What? He's not inserting a floppy disk? Sorcery. Meanwhile, Renard's even threatening to turn Goliath over to the authorities, as it's, quote, the honorable thing to do. Where does he come up with that idea? I don't know. He must not know about authorities and what they would do. Goliath asks what good it would do Renard for the Garg to be a lab experiment for the rest of his short life. Was my crime that heinous? He asks. And he's got him in some sort of manacles with some sort of telescoping restraint there. There's no sign that this sermon of Renard's is going to end soon. It's like we're stuck on point 2 of 20. Now, Renard did want to hear this, that he's admitting to a crime here. Meanwhile, on the bridge, electricity arcs from the altered bot to the bots around it, so the virus spreads. That's a really obvious yet impressive way to do wireless transmission. Renard is disgusted and disheartened by humanity in general's lack of integrity, and how much it's cost him to keep his code. He's apparently lost 2 women close to his heart thanks to it, Anastasia and Janine. Wife, kid, wives. Renard, you're kind of insufferable, so maybe that's why everybody ditched you. Aw, Renard's sad face. Goliath remembers his angel of the night. Renard starts to see a glimmer of kinship with this remark. They both lost face and loved ones due to the low moral standards of others. Goliath's sad face. Before the conversation gets too far, the tank bots guarding Goliath contract the virus, or control program, that Vogel installed. Good thing it spreads through a lightning bolt. It would have been hard to tell they were infected otherwise. Yeah, see, I think this is just a control program more than an actual true virus, and it's sure not that one that wiped out Coldstone, because that just kills everything. Halftime. What a setup for an episode. There are some intense questions and problems that I'm dying to know the answers to. What will happen to Fortress 2? Is Renard an antagonist? What are the tests Fox had? I'm digging seeing Fox be the mastermind. She's been the able accomplice to Xanatos' plots before, but now we see that she too is a formidable opponent in the planning department. I'm also enjoying seeing David react to her plan. He's kind of along for the ride here. And remember, the family that schemes together stays together. Next up, we'll finish this and learn the answers to those burning questions. Believe me, they're not what you might think. There are also a number of massive reveals, so don't miss the conclusion to the most subversive episode on TV. So what did you think about all those questions? You can comment here. You can comment on the blog. You can, of course, like, share, subscribe, do all the things. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.